But what we are going to focus on now is something that I find very interesting. It is the West Nordic feminist movement, which we are so lucky to have represented today by both Greenland, Denmark, Faroe Islands, and Iceland over here. And we have had the pleasure of having you guys visiting us here in Copenhagen for the past few days, because we have a collaboration between our countries where we are trying to strengthen the West Nordic feminist movement and the West Nordic feminist voice. So therefore, it is very important also to take this time at the Talktown Festival to talk about how we can support each other, how we can strengthen each other, but also how we in the West Nordic feminist movement always make space for diversity and for people who might not be originally from the West Nordic countries, who might have other minorities than just being a woman. So a conversation about the intersectional approach to the West Nordic feminism. Thank you. I'm gonna start with you, Inge. I would like you to start by presenting yourself. Please let us know who you represent and why you are a part of the West Nordic feminist movement in Greenland.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my name is Inge. It's a very Nordic name, but in Greenland they call me for Inge. Inge Olsvik, and I'm living in Nuuk. I am here representing the grassroots movement of the Matsgruppen, who is living in Nuuk, Greenland. And I'm here with the West Nordic feminist group and joining the group because I see that we have the similar what do you call it? Issues, challenges.
Yeah. Thank you. And we decided that Maria is speaking last, so I'll pass it on to you, Tatjana.
Okay, hello, very nice to be here. My name is Tatjana Ladinovic. I come from Iceland, represent Icelandic Women's Rights Association, the oldest feminist organization in Iceland, founded in 1907. I am originally, I have lived in Iceland for 30 years, but originally I come from former Yugoslavia, Serbia and Croatia, and very excited to be here, very excited to talk about diversity, because the focus of my activism for the last 20-something years has been on diversity and inclusion.
Thank you, and over to you.
Hi, my name is Esther. I'm from the Faroe Islands, representing LGBT Plus Faroe, the National Faroese LGBT Plus organization. And my sort of way into this West Nordic Feminist Network is as a part of that organization, because LGBT plus issues and feminist issues are the same and intertwined, and yeah, we can really work on one without the other.
Thank you. And you, Maria?
Yeah, my name, I'm going to say Laura, so you can see I'm not born in this country. Maria José Landela Østergaard, born in Spain, moved to Denmark in 1984, married to a Dane, mother to 2 kids from Lithuania. So we have a kind of diverse family. I'm very happy to be here representing the Women's Council of Denmark and to strengthen the collaboration with the other countries in this very important agenda today.
Thank you all very much for that introduction. And now we are gonna go deeper into the conversation we are gonna have on diversity and inclusion in the West Nordic feminist movement. And I would like to start with you, Tatjana, since you were the one suggesting that this was the topic we were going to spend this time talking about. So please let me know from your Icelandic perspective, how does the feminist movement look in Iceland, and is it diverse and inclusive as it is today?
Yeah, well, I was the one of the women that founded Women in Iceland, organization of foreign women in Iceland 21 years ago. So I'd like to say yes, it is diverse, but is it diverse enough? No, I don't think so, but I think that we are working towards it, and Icelandic Women's Rights Association has been at the forefront, sort of recognizing the changes in the society, and I think that we are very much aware in Iceland that that the society is diverse. It's more diverse than it was, but also we are trying to give voice and platform to groups that have always existed in Iceland, like LGBT, disabled, but they didn't have a voice. So I think, I believe that we are on the right path. I think that we all have still a lot of learning to do, and the way is long, but and we probably will never reach the nirvana, or what do you call it, but I think we are on the right path, but we always have to check ourselves. Are we, like our organization, are we speaking for all women that live in Iceland or not? And it's, it requires discipline, it requires training, it requires listening to other people and giving other people platforms that haven't had it. And I feel that it is our role to do it.
Thank you. And I'm going to you now, Inge. Let me know how it looks from your perspective in Greenland. Do you have a diverse and inclusive feminist movement in Greenland?
It's a very interesting question. I can start to inform you that Ognamartsgruppen, the Roots movement, is working with first. We are working with gender, or oh my God, I'm tired today. Sorry. We are working with equality-related issues, but the most important work we have is our work for our focus on gender-based violence. And when we are talking about the gender-based violence, we are, for the last year or two, started to talk about what we call the lateral violence, and I can tell you what lateral violence is if you are interested in it. Lateral violence, when we talk about the concept of lateral violence, we cannot avoid the concept of post-colonial, which, as you know, means after the colony. And there are so when we are talking about diversity in our work, that's a big question, because if we see it in our own perspective, I would say no, because we have some work to do to understand what lateral violence means.
Okay, so I think we are going deeper into that later in the conversation. Thank you very much, Inge. Esther, do you want to tell us a little bit about how it looks from your perspective in Faroe Islands on diversity and inclusion in the feminist movement?
Yeah, I think there's not really a simple yes or no answer to if we're inclusive or diverse enough. When it comes to diversity, I can say no, it's not diverse enough. And for a very long time, the Faroe Islands have been a very homogenous country where there weren't a lot of newcomers, not many people moved there, and most people that were sort of outside the norm moved away. So that leaves the people there being very similar. That has thankfully changed in the last few years. So the society itself is becoming more diverse, and I think that is reflected in the feminist movement. I think primarily, I don't know how to explain it. So the feminist movement in the Faroe Islands is also, if we can say, sporadic of how active it has been and how much of a presence it has been in society. But within recent years, I think the feminist movement is definitely becoming aware of the need to be inclusive, and is definitely working towards it. And it's not exclusionary. We don't have feminist, if you can call the feminist groups, that are exclusionary towards marginalized groups. But I think so far it is mostly in like public events that are hosted. There is this awareness of checking who is present, and are we missing groups in the society that aren't represented in these events, and how do we represent them or include them in these events. And I think that's definitely a step in the right direction, but we haven't yet, as in Iceland. You explained there is this group for foreign women in Iceland. We haven't been able to include them like from within the feminist movement, if that makes sense, but are very aware of it, and I think that is sort of the first step to going further in that direction. Yeah.
Can I just add one thing? I don't want to paint it too pink, the situation in Iceland, but it does sometimes, it looks like the other minority is a little bit of an afterthought. And so I think that we need to be inclusive from the get-go, from the beginning.
Yeah. I'm going to get back to you, Inge, but I just want Maria to come along as well, because you are representing Women's Council Denmark as our front woman. And how do you consider our own movement? Is that inclusive and diverse enough?
I would like to start at another place. I would like to mention that when I came to Denmark in 1984 from Spain, I thought I had came to the gender equality paradise. Everything was from the surface fantastic. There was gender equality for everyone. Everyone could develop their own potential. But then I realized very quickly that the educational system is extremely segregated, the workforce is segregated. But what really amazed me was something I didn't meet in Spain, is girls saying, oh, boys are better to maths than girls we are. And there were girls saying this. So I thought there's something completely wrong here, maybe, and then I realized that we really needed to have this, you could say, feministic movement and doing something about that. It's about thinking that we are all equally capable to develop our full potential. The full potential is different from you, for me, but we always need to have the opportunity to have it, and nobody needs to tell us that we cannot do it. So how is it in Denmark now, so many years later? I see that we are more diverse, we are more inclusive in a way, but yes, I will say we women continue being more inclusive, and we want to have diversity. But I see a very polarized society where the discussions and the dialogues are extremely harsh, especially in the social media. There's a huge pushback. There's many people that want us to go back to take care of the kids and to cook at home. And as I said, if a man says or a boy says something, they say you're an idiot. And if a girl says something, they say you have to be raped, you need to be killed. And that is really affecting our democracy, because it takes many women don't want to participate in the dialogue because they are afraid of the consequences. So for me, how the feminist movement in Denmark were growing, it's been more diverse, but I see that the resistance or the pushback is also increasing very, very much. So we have to be very aware of that. So we don't start fighting against each other, but we try to approach each other and have a dialogue in a proper way.
Thank you. And Inge, you wanted to,
Yeah, I just want to say that we in Greenland have been working with equal questions and issues for the last 30 years, but it's from the West Nordic or perspective. So that's why I said that maybe we don't really have an inclusive way of our work. And just during the colonial period and well into the present day, Greenlanders have had less influence on society and their own lives. So we have been struggling with low self-esteem, shame, concealment and lack of trust, and are something many of us is struggled with. I can say that I have some examples of our colonial history here. It's most of us Greenlandic children were sent to Denmark when we were between 11 and 12 to be to learn how to be a Dane. And for, I don't know, maybe 50 years ago, there were 22 Greenlandic children who went to Denmark, and we call them for the experimental children, and the case is called In the Best Sense. And that shows that these children was taken away from their parents to be educated in Denmark and went back to Greenland as Danes. And we have the spiral scandal, the coil scandal. Actually, I'm here today with Carla, who is here. Actually, she was supposed to come for 3 days ago, but because of the bad weather in Greenland, she came this evening, so she haven't prepared to stay here with me today. But she knows everything about this scandal, and we have what we call the legal fatherless adoptions without acceptance. Requirements in relation to language and education and control and unequal partnership. And we have been living with that, and we have not been aware of what it means for us. We just started to understand it now. So when we are talking about inclusive feminist work, we have to see our work with that kind of understanding. We have to understand ourselves, we have to understand our history, and we have to make some kind of a healing journey for us, so we can work with our issues in the right way.
Thank you so much for saying that, and I really want to ask you, all of you, you can just let me know if you want to answer it, so we can do it in a more organic way from now on. But I really want to hear you. So, how are we doing it from now on? Because there is all these past experiences that we really need to get into light and understand the meaning of. But what kind of approaches is for us in the feminist movement, whoever we are and whatever we come in with? What can we do in order to be inclusive and to also be feminist with the knowledge of what we are standing on? I don't know if any one of you have any perspectives on that. It's a very difficult question, I know, but it's also a very important conversation to have, also here in Copenhagen, considering also Denmark's role in what you were talking about, Inge. Yeah.
Maybe Inge, do you want to start?
Yeah. I came for. We started our meetings for 2 days ago, and it was our first meeting for many years. And I think I've been working with Glenn Duer for 10 years, but we haven't seen each other in real life. So we came and have this meeting, and already the first hour we had, I really feel this healing. And it was because I could be very honest about my feelings and have this room to talk about the lateral violence and talk about these struggles we have from our colonial time. Just have this dialogue and talk about it is the way out of so many misunderstandings. So the power is in us, and the power is the dialogue between us to understand and just have the room for it. One said, we have been working with it was one of you who said, we have been working with the safe spaces for so many years, but the time is it is our work in brave spaces. It says everything.
Yeah, I can agree that this was a great gathering, and I do hope we will continue. And I have been thinking a lot about it, coming from Iceland and not being Icelandic. I mean, but even though I live now there for 30 years, and I'm just wondering, why aren't we all screaming about it? The issues that the women, our next door neighbors, have. We are worried, and we have so much, we have sympathy, and we talk about a lot of problems and issues that happen further away from us, and we should be talking about it. I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but why hasn't the feminist movement so far done much to sort of to say we are here, not to solve your problems, because we cannot solve your problems. You have to help you, to empower you. I have been thinking about a lot of things, and I'm not going to overpromise here. We're going to do this and that, but we have. The situation in Iceland is obviously not perfect. We are not best in the world. We are just not as bad as the rest of the world when it comes to equality. But we have access to politicians. We have access to why doesn't feminist movement press, lobby for some repatriation or rights, or all these wrongs to be corrected as much as we can, without really stepping on the autonomy of Greenlandic women and what they want to do. So I think this is a great start. I know that it has taken a lot of time, many years, to get this little funding that we can meet here. So that's not really playing with us. It's not like there is a push or there is someone is really in the whole political system in all the countries. People are not really, politicians are really not waiting for us to start doing something, but I think we have to continue pressing it. And I also want to mention that it also relates a lot to racism that exists in all the Nordic countries, and I think that plays a big issue, and we cannot forget that for 1 second, because at least in Iceland we have women of foreign origin and people are from all over the world. And it really depends where you're coming from, how you're treated in the society. So we should not forget the dimension of racism here. And we really, really have to be very strong, very vocal against it.
I also think, and I know we're speaking of a West Nordic context now, but I think if we, and I mentioned this a lot in a Nordic context, that the Nordic region has this perception of itself as an equal region where LGBT plus rights are great and women's rights are great and all of these things, but the countries that aren't like that, for example Greenland, the Faroe Islands, they're forgotten by the bigger countries that are maybe further along in this equality path. And as you said, like, why aren't we collectively doing something about it? And I think you mentioned racism, and I definitely agree with that. And we have this thinking of saying, oh, we need to include minorities. And of course we need to include minorities. But we need to remember that if we talk about the Nordic region, like, Greenlandic people are the majority in Greenland. It's not a minority to include. It should just be the default that it is thought of and included. And I always think about this because I studied literature and I had a course on feminism, and my teacher on that course, she always said that she wanted to have a course on that because it was always, in the other courses it was like, okay, we'll do 1 week on feminism. But she was also aware that in her own course it was like feminism, okay, 2 weeks on women of colour. Because obviously you can't do everything, but it's always like okay, we need to include this, so we'll just squeeze it in somewhere rather than making it a part of the whole.
Maria? Yeah, I think it's a very important point you raise when we talk especially about minorities. There's some studies that show also that women with handicap are completely forgotten in this discussion. And the Sustainable Development Goals are about not leaving anyone behind, and there's clear documentation that people with handicap are left behind. I think in Denmark, representing the Women's Council in Denmark, we have 49, 50 other organizations, and they have individual focus. It's about fighting violence against women, or it could be rights to your own body, or it could be and different things, equal pay. So what we do in the Women's Council Denmark is to support those organizations the way we can, and also to try to find the general consensus on very key issues, so we can go to the politicians and try to move that political agenda. But I think we should start, or we should continue, because we do going to school, going back to school, and having boys and girls in school, having the dialogues about it. What is gender equality? What is a feministic society? What are the values that bring to the society? And when they start discussing in a proper way, and they have the possibility to express their own opinions, and understand that it's okay to not to agree about things, but we have to agree in a proper way. So I think something we could do more is to encourage this dialogue, as we do here in talktaown, the dialogues we are here, or when we go to Bornholm, to Folkemøde, or also when we go to the Commission on the Status of Women in New York every year, to keep asking for decent dialogues, decent discussions in a proper tone, and then we can achieve much more.
Thank you very much, all of you, for. I think it is such an important conversation, and I also want to maybe just go a little further with some of the things we also discussed in our more private group, but it is the whole matter of why do we always look into the world instead of looking at ourselves, and maybe it's because it is very hard to look at yourself, and it is very hard to understand. So what kind of position are we to take in the collaboration between us going from here and further? Because we are having a very interesting discussion about Denmark being the place where we were meeting. Are we supposed to meet in Denmark, considering the history behind us? Should we meet somewhere else? And it is just an example of how difficult these things are. And maybe that is why it becomes easier for us to look abroad and try to work with problems in a place where we are not related. But I really want to, on the final note, before opening up for a question, I want to ask you, how can we, from this place today, what can we do in order to kind of strengthen this collaboration and this voice and this learning we need to all kind of go through in order to understand our own history, in order to make a more inclusive and diverse feministic approach for the future.
I think, obviously a very big question, but I think some of the things that we actually discussed in the network meeting that we had with learning from each other, there were discussions about issues that had been fought, not because the fight ever ends, but because it was further along in Iceland, where the ferries organizations were like, okay, but could we collaborate on that? And have that focus in Iceland, for example, so that, because it is, we look further abroad, but it's also about awareness, right? We need to know what's happening in these countries. And not all issues are focused on by the mainstream media. So we need to find ways to make each other aware of what's happening in, like, for our next door neighbours, so that we are able to work together on those issues, and then obviously speak up.
Anyone else? Otherwise, I'll.
Yeah, I think that it's very fruitful to meet and to talk and to discuss, and I think that we need to continue doing that, and we have to recognize that the situations in our countries are different, and we have different issues that we are fighting for or against, or that are ahead of us, but we have to always remember that we are fighting patriarchy, and this is the bond that ties us together in different ways. And I, at least, I'm always inspired by things that I hear that other people are doing. So I hope that it will be a beginning, that the cooperation will be fruitful and will learn from each other and be inspired and get ideas on things and hopefully get funding to do projects together, because at the end it's all about that really as well.
Yeah, if we want to have a feminist society based on inclusiveness, we need to understand the different problems and find solutions that cover and can apply in different countries. That will make the solutions more resilient. And I think that although there are differences, the question today for me is that in addition to listen and to understand, we need to keep talking about gender, because gender plays a huge role. Men and women, they suffer from violence, but the degree of violence is much larger when a woman is raped or killed. Salary gap, well, women are earning less, they are not earning more than men. Access to decision-making positions, they're taking decisions about wars, about many different things, where we women are the victims and we're not there to make the decisions. So if we forget the gender aspect, if we forget that, then we're losing, because we need to find solutions that take into consideration that the way things affect women, men, and all the others are very different. We cannot be blind to that. That would be I think it's very, very important for me.
It's a big question, but I will try to answer. It's okay. I think we have the responsibility to the next generation. We are living together in the Nordic areas. I'm married to a Danish husband. My children are half Danish, half Greenlandic, whole Inuits, and we have friends everywhere we come in the Nordic countries. So it's very important to have conversations and get inspirations, and we are still fighting the same issues. But when I say it, I can say the research shows that indigenous population in the Nordic regions are more exposed to violence, and I know that it's the same for Sapni people and the Greenlanders. It's so important that we can understand each other's perspectives and our history, but we are still in the same sisterhood. We are still fighting the same issues.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
It's not to build on that, but it was just an example that I thought of when I talk about that we need to be aware of what's happening in our neighbouring countries. Is that and it's not to say that we shouldn't look elsewhere and also comment on that, but when they started taking back the rights to abortions in the United States, there was an outrage here in Denmark, rightfully so. But then people from the Faroe Islands started pointing out, why are you so outraged by this in the United States but not in the Faroe Islands, where there isn't a right to a free choice, to free abortion? And that is
I'm assuming and hoping, due to lack of awareness. The fact that a lot of Danish people don't know that in rigsfællesskabet there aren't the same rights. And I'm not saying like come and decide for us, but pressure the Faroese politicians, just as you're trying to do it elsewhere.
Thank you very much for making that important point. I was thinking if we can just open up for maybe one question, just to make it seem as if we are actually including the participants and not only talking intensely up here. So anybody has a question? No? But then we can just keep on talking. No, but I think time is starting to be up. So if there's one here. Sorry.
Well, I'm hi. My name is Brynhildur, and I'm from Iceland, and I've worked in the feminist movement for now 25 years. And I have to say, fellesskap is such a good word. Sort of like that, we are all Nordic peoples, both countries and also regions, autonomous regions, and regions. Åland, that I think is not autonomous, but we are all countries in a fellowship of Nordic countries. And speaking as an Icelander, we come from the smallest independent states in the Nordic countries. There are only 350,000 Icelanders. And we have Denmark, I think, with 5 million, Sweden with 9 million. So we are a microstate in all. And I have seen from experience, and when I look at Icelandic feminism, I have seen how Iceland has benefited as a microstate from cooperating with the Nordic countries, the constant collaboration that we learn from them and they learn from us. But I think sort of like if we want to talk about how we can work together to focus on changing the structure, and I want to go back to the money that Tatjana was mentioning, is that sort of like we need to find ways to make sure that the funding structures and the mechanisms of that encourage this Nordic cooperation, because we know that the Nordic governments want to increase cooperation, but they focus on countries that have reached independence. And we need to find ways to pressure our governments to make sure that the autonomous regions and the indigenous peoples that populate our countries, that are our countries as well, that they are included in this schematic. So this is a structural change that we can, as activists, and especially those of us that are professional activists, that we should find ways of trying to do immediately. So just a reflection. Yeah. I always stand up to talk about money when I stand up.
But thank you, a very good and important reflection. And I think we need to close off, so you are all welcome to reflect back to Brynhildur, but you are also very welcome to make a last note. If you want to.
Yeah, well, obviously I agree with Brynhildur. She's the godmother of this project, so it's just that. But yes, I really do hope that we will find ways to continue cooperating, meeting, and also everyone is welcome to Iceland. I think we will meet next year in Iceland, so that will be great. And I think that we should use the power that we do have as lobbyists and as activists to pressure our governments to put more focus on the equality issues in the Nordic region, and especially West Nordic regions, because they are far from optimal.
I just, when you were talking, something said Nordic Minister.
Yeah.
We should go to them. We should ask them.
Yeah.
Try to support them.
It's, they are already paying.
Okay.
Yeah. But the point is
not enough.
No, not enough. Yeah.
So my reflection on this is sometimes when we're in those meetings, it looks like we're preaching to the converted. You know, we agree. So we need to change a bit. We need to do it in a way that men also feel welcome. I know that there was some discussions earlier before this one, because sometimes when we say feminism, then they start running away. They say like, you women want to conquer everything. And in my working place, I hear Maria, you've got everything, women have got everything you want. What else do you want? So the conversation has to be changed in a way that everybody feels included and not just the already converted.
There is a thing that I have been thinking about for the last days. That is that I started the meeting talking in Greenlandic, and I speak Danish in my daily life, and I'm trying to speak English here. But in the end, when we are together, we really speak with our hearts, the language of our hearts, and we understand each other. And this is powerful. So we are together, we are a sisterhood. It's not depending on our culture, our language, our history. We are still women. We are women struggling with so many things. So I just want to say thank you so much for inviting Greenland to this discussion. It's very important for us.
Thank you for being here. But then I just want to close off by saying thank you so much for also bringing the Nordic perspective into all these conversations we have had for the past couple of days. Being on the African continent, talking about problems in Europe, in the States, all around the world. It is very empowering, but also challenging in a very important way to actually be together and consider our own role. Yeah. No more said.